episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this week's Byte Show. We're going to be chatting on-chain perpetuals. There is a really nice little kind of a new segment into the DeFi world, and I think that perpetuals and on-chain trading is going to be a new little niche that's going to be rising. And I think it's going to be the next greatest innovation inside of just in general DeFi and the next kind of proof thesis of the actual tech stack. Evan, Jeff, thank you guys so much for joining me. Evan, are you excited today for today's chat?
I am excited because I consider myself a bit of a degen, and whenever we talk to some of these perp DEXs, especially on Arbitrum, which is my favorite layer 2 to use with those fees that are just so low, I start to get a little bit degenerate and start using it all the time, every day, and I can't focus on anything else. So maybe I'm not excited. Maybe I should just cut the interview now. But Jeff, we're happy to have you here, man. Excited to talk about HyperLiquid. First and foremost, though, I am gonna jump out here and say, you guys are building this on Arbitrum, right? I'm not confusing you with someone else, am I?
So we have a custom L1 that runs almost everything, and then we have a bridge from Arbitrum.
Gotcha. So I want to start off with a hard question, curveball here. What do you think separates HyperLiquid from some of the other perps DEXs out there? What makes you guys stand out? Why would I, as a degen, as a recovering addict to high leverage, want to come over and use HyperLiquid?
Yeah, there are a few things. So the biggest one in terms of like long-term vision is that we're actually building it on a custom L1. So the order book, as well as the margining and positions and liquidations, all happen on chain. So I think there are a lot of solutions out there right now which kind of cut corners. I think it's easy if you spin up just one server to do the order matching. You can move pretty quickly and have the assets custodied on some smart contract and have the matching engine with special permissions to be able to match signed orders. And that works to start, but it really doesn't align with the long-term vision of DeFi, which is that all of the operation of the exchange should be fully auditable and on chain. And so that's like the long-term vision view. For a user though, like day to day, they may not care about that as much. But I will say that some interesting things to highlight on HyperLiquid are that we have, for example, this notion of vaults and their primitive built into the L1 itself. Basically, it's kind of like an evolution of copy trading. And we sort of, as a demonstration of its flexibility and power, we have 2 protocol vaults, which maybe we'll get to later. But basically, long story short, they let users participate in a decentralized way in liquidations and the market making on the exchange. So the operation of the exchange itself is bootstrapped by the users. It's democratized. And I think that aligns very well with how, I guess, like the vision of DeFi in general. And then apart from that, there's just, I think we put a lot of work into making the UI quick and snappy. So despite being fully on-chain, the latency from an end user's perspective can feel quite comparable to centralized exchanges. The throughput's extremely high, so the gas fees are negligible. And in fact, during closed alpha, the gas is just entirely subsidized. And so could go on and on, but maybe those are some of the highlights.
No, that's awesome. And I'm looking at the vaults right now. One of the strategies is long only, no stop loss. So they've only got 140.
Yeah, so these are created by users. Yeah, it's completely decentralized. So right. Any user can go and create a vault. They have to play by the rules of the vaults, the system itself. So the leader has to maintain a minimum share. There'll be lockups and things like that. But other than that, you let your own creativity run wild.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess we might as well start there because we're already talking about the vaults. I haven't seen this before. So the Liquidator Vault, I assume, is you enter some amount into that, and then that's taking care of the liquidations. Does it then like sell off the assets, or how does that work? Like as an automated sort of vault process? I haven't seen that before.
Right. So on a lot of other protocols, the liquidations are basically decentralized in the sense that like anyone can come and snipe a liquidation. So you see this on Aave, on DYDX, and a lot of other protocols. And so the value of the liquidation really, ultimately, it's an MEV thing. So it accrues to the miners or some intermediary, and people compete to take the juicy liquidation fill. And so in the liquidation vault, we're doing it in a completely different way, which is that this vault itself is the sole liquidator of positions on HyperLiquid. So zooming out a bit, when you enter a leverage position, there's some collateral you have to put up, and you control that by the leverage you set and whether it's cross or isolated margin. But once your unrealized P&L plus your collateral drops below what's called the maintenance margin, the platform needs to liquidate you unless, if they let you run too close to zero, then there's risk of the platform having to take on the bad debt. And so this is where the Liquidator Vault comes in. And so it'll just monitor, it's an automated strategy. It monitors all the positions that are open. And for anyone that is liquidatable, it'll take it, take the position and the collateral over, which is initially a positive P&L trade. But then, like you said, the subtlety is like you need to exit the position gracefully enough such that on average, you're making money by doing this. And so there it leverages just a pretty simple market making algorithm to slowly exit a position that it takes on. And so this isn't guaranteed to make money, but you can kind of see it's quite a positive expectancy trade. So the vault page should show you like cumulative graphs of P&L and TVL.
So since the vault is operating off of this algorithm, is that algorithm being completely determined and calculated off-chain?
Right. So all the vaults are currently running off-chain strategies, but the part that is on-chain is everything the vault is doing. So all the orders, positions, trade history, deposits, withdrawals, in this case, like the liquidations, these are all on-chain.
Okay. And I definitely want to dig into a little bit of the component about the fact that you guys aren't necessarily just a platform that's on Arbitrum. You guys have a bridge right now where people can actually go experience this trading experience. But the ultimate direction is to take this into kind of the app chain realm and really kind of make that thesis that you can build a tailored solution L1 that can hyper focus on a very specific app and its function. And I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into how HyperLiquid is utilizing the Cosmos SDK or just being able to build in that your own L1, just essentially how that is enhancing kind of the experience that HyperLiquid is providing compared to that of something that like GMX V2 may be providing.
Right. So we don't actually use the Cosmos SDK. We looked into it, but decided we'd rather take the underlying consensus, which is Tendermint, and I guess is now being developed under Comet, I think. Basically taking the consensus, which works, is pretty battle tested, and then building out everything on top of it on our own. So we want to code in Rust because we just think that's the best language out there for these kinds of systems problems, and we want to optimize everything in the stack. So when you use Cosmos, you kind of have to basically, you're kind of locked into using these modules, or if you're going to write it from scratch, you might as well just do it like we did. So right, your question about like what about the L1 benefits us? Basically, like writing a perp DEX, I can't really imagine doing it not as an L1 if you want it to actually be decentralized. So the problem with smart contracts is they're like a really nice way to get interoperability with, say, like other token contracts. But when you have a complex system like a perps DEX that has to handle funding, margining, liquidations, all this stuff, it really starts to get in the way. Like a super simple example that I like to give is like if you want to handle funding payments every 8 hours, for example, if you have a smart contract on Arbitrum, for example, you need to have somebody triggering that computation, and that computation scales with a number of open positions. So this quickly becomes infeasible. Like you'll hit against the block gas limit, and so you have these non-atomic funding payments. And that's just one example. But if you're running an L1, you can just build that right into the I guess like state transition. So you can say if there's a block that increases the epoch number relative to the previous block, then let's just like run these computations. And it's just like a much more elegant way to handle it. And these examples are numerous.
I want to get back into like some of the trading UX. Interestingly enough, I'm just taking a look at the assets you guys have listed, and a lot of DEXs, or at least perps DEXs rather, they kind of make they have their bread and butter pairs, and a lot of them will just be like, they start with ETH and Bitcoin, and then maybe a couple other like top 10 coins. you guys, interestingly enough, and maybe this is I'm sure this was planned. You guys are offering, and your highest volume pairs are like Pepe, DYDX, Lido, Injective, Render, some tokens that I haven't really seen traded elsewhere. So I guess a couple questions here. How do you like decide on what assets or what pairs to list? And then were you guys surprised to see things like Pepe, boil to the top, or was that like a strategic decision to say, hey, let's be one of the few places where you can go leverage up on a Pepe trade?
Yeah, we were somewhat surprised at the beginning, but we've been seeing this pattern. So I guess with new listings, we're less and less surprised. I think it's a bit of a dry spell in trading. So when something like Pepe comes up, I think it's like it kind of like breathes a sign of life into the otherwise like dead communities. So we just want to give the people what they want. So like ultimately the vision is anyone can list anything on HyperLiquid. Like the whole thing should just be decentralized. But obviously we're not quite there yet. And so right now it's sort of more like community feedback. So people say, hey, I want to trade this or I want to trade that. And we just evaluate like, okay, is it, we're not going to list something that's just like complete like rug pull scam kind of thing. But when you see this project's like gain some traction, it's obviously like do your own research and stuff, but like it's like legit enough to be listed broadly, then we'll say, okay, like let's make it available on HyperLiquid as well. And so like, if someone's trying to trade BTC or ETH, like I guess every single DEX and SEX has this listed, and it's a tough sell, right? But where can you, in a decentralized way, while maintaining custody of your own funds, trade, like you mentioned, like Lido or Render, Pepe. Like this is, especially being able to long and short with leverage. I think it's a much smaller set of offerings. And so we're glad to kind of step in and fill that. And with market making vault, also a big point is that we have pretty strong just day zero liquidity on anything that gets listed, and so we're pretty just like ambitious with that and like move kind of quickly.
Yeah, I know a lot of people out there are rubbing their hands thinking like, wow, here's an opportunity to short Pepe because they think the meme's going to end. But then a lot of times that adds to the fuel of it popping up even further. So never financial advice on this program, but I just know in my DMs, I've had some people say, man, where can I short this Pepe? This is insane. And maybe here it is. So it's interesting though.
A lot of shorters on Pepe. The funding rate was pretty crazy for a few days. So it was very negative. So we're just saying like, generally people wanted to short. And so you had to pay to short.
And I imagine that's why the liquidation vault has such a high APR as well.
Yeah, so that APR is compounded, I guess, so technically APY since inception and like projected out to be a year. So it kind of depend. It just doesn't matter what's hot and trending. Like the Liquidator Vault will be there to backstop the platform, and so yeah, that's why its APY is quite impressive.
I wanted to dig a little bit into the component of how you have a pretty extensive documentation page set up where people can come in and set up their own Python and actually start building up like automated trade strategies within their own windows. Do you guys see there being more or just like more enhancements for this programmatic like algorithmic trading, or is it just going to kind of just be like leave it out there, leave it enabled, and just kind of give people the access to it and just kind of let that composability just unlock new strategies moving forward?
Yeah, this has been a pretty high priority for us from day one, which is a truly decentralized perps DEX. If it's good, it should be super easy for people to integrate their automated strategies. And so coming from like our team kind of comes from a market making background anyway, so it was pretty straightforward for us to implement this stuff, and it's gotten a really good reception. I think a lot of people are making YouTube tutorials and live streams of them using the API, and I think it's been cool to see. And the plan, I guess, is to continue supporting it, like making it a full-fledged offering. People say, hey, like how can I adjust my leverage in a programmatic way? And we'll say, oh, like we didn't implement that, but give us a few hours and we'll crank it out. And examples like that. So I think it's quite a unique offering in that it's hard. Like most DEXs are kind of hard to interface with in an algorithmic way because you have to kind of translate what you're trying to do to this new setting of like smart contracts, whereas HyperLiquid feels a lot more like a centralized exchange than some smart contract you're interacting with. So you can kind of just port over what you've tried before on, whether it's Coinbase or Binance or wherever you usually trade. And we're also looking to integrate with a bunch of other API providers. So I guess we'll stay tuned for that. But people are definitely interested in sort of taking their sort of composable maybe strategies that are automated or bots, like a bot offering system or something, and like hooking that into HyperLiquid. And I think our API makes it super easy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have seen the YouTube tutorials just kind of blowing up in regards to HyperLiquid. And honestly, that's kind of one of the reasons why I heard about the platform, was just that programmability of building your automated strategies. And there's a lot of people even trying to incorporate AI, trying to use AI to make it do some decision trees and make actual decision making for the trading. I do enjoy that. Is there any kind of thinking on throttling or creating some sort of tier structure for how much you're accessing and how much you're actually trading on the API? Because I have a feeling there's going to be some crazy degens who are going to try to execute like hundreds of trades in a span of a minute or something.
Yeah, ultimately, that's a good question. I think right now we're still pretty small, so we're not sweating the small stuff like that. The system is very high throughput, so it's not like Ethereum where you're processing 12 transactions a second. And yeah, in that case, you got to really, really be careful. But the throughput is there. Last week benchmarked, it was at 20. It could withstand bursts of 20,000 orders per second, but obviously, at a sustained rate, that will just blow up state and other things. So it's a real concern, and the real answer to that is when we fully decentralize the L1 and launch the token that secures it through proof of stake, then there will be some minuscule gas charge, and it will just be so small that for an average user, you basically just round it to zero, orders of magnitude less than even L2s. But for somebody trying to DDoS the network and like spam it, whether intentionally or unintentionally, this will kind of put a stop to that.
That's interesting.
Now, for those strategies that people are building, whether it's with AI and all this complicated mumbo jumbo and jargon stuff that Joseph likes to use, or whether it's just through old-fashioned killer instinct and being a big brain trader, like the way I do it, like we used to do back in my day. Is there a way, if these become user vaults that are like climbing up the leaderboard here, for you to take commission on that? Or is it just strictly just a leaderboard just to see and allow other people to kind of follow trade?
Yeah, so vaults currently are in a pretty basic bare bones state. So we'll definitely iterate on this based on feedback. But currently how they're set up is vaults default to a 10%. We call it the leader P&L share. We really like to think of it as more copy trading because that's what people are familiar with. But yeah, so it's computed at the time of withdrawals. So pretty simple, like everything's proportional. So you are incentivized as a leader to do well. Whatever your share is, you're obviously trading that still. And someone else's share, I guess, if you do well, like they're agreeing, like, hey, in exchange for letting this beast trader like Evan manage my money, I will I will sacrifice part of the gains, but it's only if it goes up. And I guess I also want to clarify though that the vaults that are protocol vaults, the Liquidator and the market maker, these have no such like fees or P&L share at all. So they're truly community owned. Like every dollar in one of those vaults is treated equally. And I think that's super important because it's easy to have misaligned incentives. Sometimes exchanges are, as we've seen, like market making on their own books and doing all sorts of sketchy things. And so we want to make it as transparent and as democratic as possible with those like protocol vaults.
That's awesome to hear. I don't think any Perpetuals on-chain platform is kind of pursuing this ability to be composable. I think platforms, when you compare it to something like GMX, it's a different type of composability where it's essentially building on top of products. Where, for example, like GLP. With the creation of GLP, there has been kind of this unlocked layer where people can build products on top of GLP and make it more leveraged. And I don't know why you would want to make that more leveraged, but you can. And it seems like you guys are going with a different type of approach where it's essentially a allowing that composability of having this open access to trading vaults, almost running actual experiences of having like a hedge fund of sorts. I even saw a job on LinkedIn the other day. It was like junior crypto trader. We'll give you 20K if you trade a certain amount. We'll let you keep like 50% of the profits or whatever, and you get paid like some horrible salary. And it seems like that these vaults are like rather similar, but an on-chain method of getting everyone just kind of together on the baseline of saying, this is how much is in the vault. Here's how trading is going to execute. Is that kind of a decision by design? And is this how you see trading kind of evolving with an actual ledger and like an on-chain trading system?
I think for us, it's mainly the goal is to just give people the tools to do what they want, and building good tools. And so I have less of a view on whether in the future, like what percentage of trading volume will be done through vaults. I think it's not for everyone, right? Like, some people shouldn't be trading until like they're degen enough on their own. Like, you don't want to be like liquidating everyone, but it gives you the power to do that. And it really is like, I view it as like a tool. The only exception is the protocol vaults. It's like essential for the operation of the platform, and sort of, liquidity and liquidations are just, if you don't have those, you don't have a DEX, a perps DEX. So maybe for those, I have a strong view. Like, this is like very important to the operation of the platform. And you can see right now, like almost every trade on the other side right now is HLP, the liquidity provider, because it's just early and people haven't had a chance to scale up like massive market making strategies yet. And so like the day zero liquidity is like super important to us. Does that answer your question?
It answers it. I think that we're in a really interesting phase of just like in general perpetuals on chain, and it's interesting to see the different types of almost approaches and the theses of how a community should be interacting with the platform. And HyperLiquid really has kind of defined a new edge to that entire experience. And I guess I wanted to just like hit on a little bit on that moat, or just that competitive edge, or that competitive factor. With that upcoming release of GMX V2, is there any thinking that is kind of guiding you guys in understanding like there is a major kind of competitor in the space? Any types of just a little bit of insight into your guys' thinking with that competition on the horizon?
Right. So I don't know about GMX V2 in particular. As far as I know, not many details have been released, but maybe not. But
Okay.
I think any sort of, so I don't have insight there, but I guess we'll see. I'm super excited to see the competition. Like, what, DYDX released their like V4 like outline the other day, and I was like reading that, and I found that very interesting. I think it's like very cool to see people take different approaches to the same problem. That being said, like, I feel very strongly that we take the correct approach. We thought long and hard and like iterated and built this. Like, some people don't know this, but we actually started as a like Arbitrum, more like Arbitrum based DEX, where trades were being settled on Arbitrum as well. And we actually ran this for a decent amount on testnet until we just like couldn't. It was just too hard to actually build what we wanted to build. And so the L1 was by necessity, not just some like gimmick. So yeah, I think like building a custom L1 with the performance profile that it has, which is sub 0.5 second latency, tens of thousands of TPS, and growing that even further. I think it's just like, it's essential. Like, if you're building a DEX, like if you're just looking to, make a little bit of money over the next year, you can cut all sorts of corners, but we're not in it to do that. The vision is that DEXs are better than centralized exchanges. And the only reason people don't know that yet and still trade on centralized exchanges is that a good DEX hasn't been built. And so taking that kind of long-term perspective, we're willing to work. I think building the L1 set us back by many months in terms of like being able to ship the product, but like we find it so important that we're happy to do it the right way. And the same thing with sort of building out these like vaults were actually a very tricky feature to implement. There are a lot of edge cases, and building it in as a primitive, I think, is I guess there's a reason it doesn't exist too much elsewhere. And integrating it natively with the L1 Orderbook DEX, I think, is going to be essential for like how these things operate. And we take the time to do that. But yeah, I mean, still shipping pretty quickly, and kind of like when users want something, we evaluate it and just crank it out if enough people want it. So that's kind of how we operate, and we're welcome to see the competition. We're pretty. Honestly, it's just like at this point the pie is so small. We're just like happy to see the like DEX market share grow as a whole. I think that is like just great to see, regardless of who's doing it.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to see that you guys have it's exciting to hear that you guys were building this out on Arbitrum, and it just kind of eventually hit you guys that building what you wanted to build in terms of just like true product market fit and also just optimally the good product. It's interesting to hear that you guys really identified that building your own L1 was just going to be the best route to conceive of the product. So definitely don't want you guys to treat yourself too harshly in terms of saying that you guys haven't been shipping products, because I think that being able to develop in that paradigm of being on a controlled L1 and then going and deploying your own for this specific function, it's really interesting because it seems like other teams have also come to that conclusion, DYDX including. And it just, I think it is going to be a provable thesis that it will unlock better experiences for users. So just hats off to you guys for realizing that, and also just kind of going through that and actually realizing that that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Thanks.
Evan, go for it. I didn't wasn't a question in that one.
Yeah, I just want to echo Joseph's sentiment there. I think this is great. I mean, it's a cool combination of trading and like fun with the vaults and the leaderboard and stuff. I do think we're starting to see sort of a shift in the way that these DEXs work, where, you know, even like a year ago, what options did you have to trade perps decentralized or use leverage in a decentralized manner? Most people were on FTX probably at that point, or whatever, you know. So you know, it's not just something that you guys are like building for the hell of it, but it's a necessity. And I hope that, you know, more and more people start to move away from, because, like, you know, I say this all the time, there's so many users that are like, hey, I'm a crypto, you know, I'm in crypto, or I trade crypto, and it's like, oh, well, cool. Like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I just log into Coinbase or I log into Binance. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, yeah, you trade crypto, but like, you might as well just be using like a bank account at that point. It's not really like, you're missing the whole purpose of self-custody. And so seeing the user experience come further along with what you guys are doing, I think is super important. I wanted to ask a more specific question. Being that the trades are going against the what do you call it, the hyper LP, the HLP, does that limit then open interest? Do you guys have limits on that, or how does that work?
No, there are no limits. Well, no limits baked into the protocol, unlike GMX. The key difference is on GMX, you only trade against the GLP pool. And so, you know, that's literally a collection of assets. And if you want to long one on leverage, you borrow that from the pool and trade it. So there's naturally a limit there. Whereas HLP is simply a strategy running on HyperLiquid. So it has no privilege in that sense. And the vision is it will synergize with other market makers coming in. And like we welcome people to come in and provide more liquidity, and it makes markets more efficient. Whereas on GMX, it's not possible. You have to trade against the house, basically.
Right. Okay, that's cool. So then there's like that traditional sort of market makers can come in and trade and provide liquidity how they want. But then if you're, you know, if it's so easy, a caveman can do it if you just want to get into the vaults. Is that a correct way to describe it?
I guess so. I mean, probably, I imagine if there are enough vaults out there, picking the right ones becomes more of it becomes a quantitative like challenge in and of itself. But yeah, we're hoping with the protocol vaults, at least for the initial period of you know, retail interest outweighing professional market maker interest, you should be handsomely rewarded for being that liquidity. That being said, I do think, you know, with any vault there are risks, and we're not in the business of like promoting any specific person's strategy. It's just it's a tool. It's a well-oiled machine, I guess.
Of course not. But did you see Humble Degen Trading's APY? He's killing it.
Yeah, it's impressive to me. Sometimes I go through and see the trades that they're making, and blows my mind. Yeah, how these people. Yeah, I'm not a discretionary trader on my own, so I don't really know how people. I mean, maybe I'll just say it's probably skill. They probably like know something that I don't.
There's definitely an interesting kind of just community rallying in regards to getting these strategies booted up. Because I was part of, I'm in a Discord. Shout out to the Humble Farmer Army. And in that Discord, there was just so much hype for getting access to HyperLiquid and also just building out strategies. That a referral link tree was started where people were sharing their referral links to get into the platform. And I could tell that immediately the hype was building so that people can actually just go in and actually start trading just like insane positions. And I like the fact that it's doxed where you can see these vaults and see how they're executing trades. I just think that adds a lot more to the community element and having that ability to see what's going on.
Yeah. You not only see their trades and positions, you can also you can project the performance. You can say like over the last 30 days, like, let me look at the account value. And if that line is, bouncing with 90% drawdowns, then up 200%, like I don't know, like at that point, you're probably a little bit sketched out. Whereas if it's a little bit more of a consistent line, higher sharp strategy, you might feel more confident. So we just want to make the data available to people. And this is all on chain. Like that's another thing. Like right now we maintain and improve the front end, but ultimately, it's all about the data on chain, and people can come in and visualize it however they want.
We've even got some chatter in the comments here where someone said PBR Vault will come back eventually. Is that Pabst Blue Ribbon Vault? Is that for guys that drink PBR? Because I'd get into that.
He's one of the users.
Yeah.
You only
yeah,
drink PBR.
He probably likes PBR.
Yeah, Jeff, you mentioned a little bit earlier, you hinted at true decentralization and having a token to secure the platform here. Is there any information on that? Feel free to not have any information. Most people choose not to, but for anybody that's listening or watching on the replay, maybe you can drop some hints or details about that.
Well, I might be disappointing here, but no information on that. All I can say is it's an L1, so it needs to have a native token. That's how proof of stake works. But as for details, it's just not in our priorities right now. I think a lot of projects issue the token too quickly, and then that becomes the project. It's all about how do I get this token, like what the price is, and how do I pump the price of the token. And I think that just makes incentives kind of weird. So right now we're trying to just focus on the product and the users, getting more users, and when users do come to the platform, making sure that this is an order of magnitude better than anything else they've used, and that they will like convert, and building the community that way. It's harder, it's slower, it's less gimmicky, and like you don't get the like marketing boost of the token, but we think it's the right way to do it.
I agree with you, and it's another common trope that I've probably repeated a million times, but I'll say it again. When Uber came out, I didn't own Uber tokens, but it was just so cool. I was like, holy shit, I need to tell every single one of my friends that we can just summon a car to come pick us up, especially being in Pittsburgh where there's like not taxis. And now with crypto, it's like, you could provide me no value, but you give me a token or an airdrop or something, and all of a sudden I'm like the biggest shill for some piece of shit app that means nothing or does nothing. So I appreciate that approach. I guess another question sort of in the same vein, do you see the layer 1 becoming a primitive for other applications built on top of it, or do you want it to just be just for the HyperLiquid DEX platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe sometime down the line, but I think there are enough general purpose L1s that it's not clear why we need to build another one. Whereas, so like our goal really is like, we want to build this perps DEX because that's a product that is sorely needed, like a good one, especially after FTX, and people want it. And so we're going to build it. And the L1 is really like a tool to get us there. And I guess we kind of talked about it earlier in that question, which basically I think it's like to build a good order book DEX, like it needs to be on an L1 if you want it to be fully decentralized. And that's our whole perspective on it right now. And we focus on like this one product, and I think that's a big advantage for us. I kind of view it like probably like how Apple views some of their decisions, which is like we want to give this end user experience. And so, when Steve Jobs, and the whole team there was making the iPhone, there were no, touchscreen vendors or like these things. They had to build the infrastructure, like invent things along the way, and like build it up until the final product that users saw. And like that is what ends up being revolutionary. And so that's really our focus really is on the product and not on some like general L1 narrative.
That's interesting. That's a different app chain thesis that I've heard. I think that's kind of a very distinguishing factor versus what most people are doing in the Cosmos when they're building their own app chain. They're really surrounding itself around this like L1 token idea and the L1 token concept and building out your own block space. It's kind of one of the reasons why there's like an ongoing debate that the Atom Cosmos chain itself is just useless to the entire ecosystem because everyone else is like launching up their own L1s with a specialized function. So that's interesting insight for sure.
Yeah, I think Atom will have some value accrual with the shared security stuff. I think that's a really cool model as well. I think infrastructure is important. Yeah, I think these kinds of projects are important. Maybe what I'm saying, I'm not trying to like shit on general purpose L1 so much. It's more just that we feel like there's not an obvious reason to build another one, other than if you want to raise some quick money or something. But like we're really focused on like what do people want, and maybe one perspective is like, let's say you have a really really good general purpose L1, like what are you going to build on it, like a DEX. So yeah, that is like the killer application.
It is a DEX. Yeah, I agree with you. The killer application so far has been proven to be a DEX.
So just cut to the chase and build the DEX.
Everyone just start building a DEX. I think that's what everyone should do.
Speculators, man, that's us. We love come for the speculators, stay for the sound money. Somebody said that once. Hey, small detail question that I forgot to ask as well. What is the collateral? What do you guys accept?
Only USDC right now.
Okay.
I think I think when users ask for it, we're pretty happy to add other stablecoins. But I think apart from that, like maybe BTC and ETH, but it's really not on the roadmap. Like for us, these are marginal improvements that make the expose the platform to a whole lot of other risk. And so you kind of saw this with FTX, where they let you collateralize with your shitcoins like other shitcoins, and like I guess we all saw how that went. So kind of cautious about that. I think like if you really want to use your other tokens as collaterals, you can use Aave to borrow USDC against that and then deposit USDC. This is a nice example of composability. Like we're a DEX, we're not a borrow lending margining protocol as well.
That makes sense.
Gotcha. Not financial advice. Anything he just said, by the way, don't go thinking that we told you to do that.
Right.
We'll probably
Joseph,
get a comment.
Joseph, that's all I have.
That's basically all I have. Jeff, where do you want people to go? Where do you want people to stay in tune with what's going on with HyperLiquid? And in general, what's upcoming? Any alpha you want to drop? Any big releases upcoming?
Yeah, so to stay up to date, we have a Twitter at HyperLiquidX. You can follow me, Chameleon Jeff. I try to write as much about HyperLiquid as possible, but the main account does so well that I'm relegated to just writing about market making sometimes, which is like a past life. But as for we also have a Discord. I think that's where most of the engagement and community building happens. We try to be really active and love when people come in and just drop their feedback or share screenshots of things that went wrong. So just go to the Discord if you're serious about using it. And as for alpha, I guess we're not really into like teasing alpha before things happen. So with HLP, I guess HLP was released just yesterday, so it's pretty good timing on your guys' part. But we had been testing that.
That was just released. Okay.
Well, so I guess it was just announced. So it had been in test mode. We had just been like running it for maybe almost a month, and there had been a steady trickling in of like people noticing it and using it and saying, hey, like what is this thing? Like why haven't you guys talked about it? And for us, it's just when we're relatively confident something is ready for more users, we'll announce it. But otherwise, it's just we build and we release things. So best way to stay tuned on alpha is just like join the Discord, follow the Twitter, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Jeff. This looks awesome. I'm excited for you guys and all the progress that you're going to make.
Oh, did we lose him? I think we lost him on the high seas.
Rect validator. Did you lose me? Am I back?
You're getting some turbulence on the ocean, man. I'm sorry. The Arctic Ocean's really hitting you hard.
Hello, hello, hello. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but you're
back.
very delayed, sir. All right. I think. Can you hear us now?
How about now? I can hear you. I never lost you.
Okay, well, you're back now if you want to go back on your little rant.
Oh, Liquid Spirit says, come trade on HL today. Rect Validator says, Jeff, show my referral link, please, and thank you. And that's PBR, and I'm looking at his stats, and his APY is minus 100%. So I don't know if that's a good referral link to share. That's about as bad as it gets. I don't know if PBR is going to make a comeback, but I'm cheering for you, Rect Validator. Okay, that's it. That's it for me. Sorry, I'm hitting some high waves here.
Hitting some high waves. Jeff, thank you so much for joining. Evan, thank you for joining us from the Arctic Ocean on your submarine. It's been a pleasure. Hope you DGens have fun exploring HyperLiquid X. But as always, nothing you saw or what we discussed today is financial advice. Go enjoy what is available out there with your own sovereign access to these DeFi primitives. Have a good one. We'll see you on the next episode of the Byte Show.
Thanks, guys.